I didn't know I was cursed when I left Marcus. I thought I was free. He was all charm in the beginning, the kind of man who made you feel like the only person in the room. But underneath it, there was something possessive. Something felt kind of off. And by the time I realized it, I was already falling for him. And leaving it wasn't easy, but I did it, and I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. And the first thing I noticed was my reflection. At night, brushing my teeth, I'd catch a dark figure hesitating just a fraction of a second too long before moving with me. And I told myself that I was tired and that it was all in my head. But soon, the shadows in my apartment seemed to cling to the walls, heavy and unmoving, even when every light was on. And then I started to hear whispers of my name. It was soft, like only I could hear it. And sometimes it was Marcus's voice. And sometimes it was a lower and deeper voice with a growl, like the scraping of stone. And I'd wake up with bruises on my arms, scratches that I couldn't explain. And once, I found a black feather on my pillow. And I don't own anything, not even a down blanket, that has feathers in it. And I thought I was losing my mind. Between the stress or the trauma or whatever I tried to label it, it didn't stick, it didn't fit. Nothing was making sense. And then I started to have dreams. Marcus would stand in the corner of my room and he'd be smiling. But the smile was way too big. Like it didn't match the length of how big his mouth was. Like the smile was creepishly bigger. But his eyes weren't his, and they glowed faintly like fiery ambers. And then weeks passed before I understood he hadn't let me go. Not really. And in his anger and in his desperation, he'd found someone who promised him power, and then he used it on me, and he cursed me. And what was attached to me now, it wasn't Marcus, but it wore his bitterness like a second skin. I figured it'd have to be a demon, and it had to have been bound to me because it wasn't clung to the apartment, it was clung to me and wherever I went. It was feeding on me, and every day I tried to ignore it. And the more it pressed closer to me, I could feel like somebody was touching me sometimes. And it was bleeding into my waking life. So I didn't leave Marcus because he cheated, or he yelled, or he hit me. I left because of the secret room I found in his house. For months, he kept it locked. He said it was where he wrote, where he needed his privacy, and I never pressed too hard. Everyone deserves their secrets, right? But he was becoming more secretive by the day, and he started talking about energy and rituals, old ways that he'd found in these books that didn't really look like any books you'd find in a normal store. They had these symbols on them. They were a lot older, but I didn't pay any mind to it. And he started to burn strange herbs in the sink at midnight, in the middle of the night, muttering words I didn't understand. And I thought it was just a phase or some weird obsession he came across. But come to find out it wasn't. So the curiosity, it finally caught up to me one night. And one weekend he went out of town. And that was the first time I tried the key. he left behind. The lock clicked open too easily, like it had been waiting for me, like it wanted me to come in there, which creeped me out even more. And inside, the air smelled of ash and iron, and the candles had melted into puddles across the floorboards. And the wax hardened in like strange shapes, like somebody took the time to melt this wax into certain shapes on the floor in a big circle. And the walls were covered in symbols that I didn't recognize. I saw weird circles and lines and markings, and it felt so creepy and ominous just to look at. And in the center of the room was a table. And as I walked up to the table, I froze. As I saw my face stared back at me from the table. There were photos, some I didn't even know he'd taken, and he had arranged around a figure made of twine and feathers, bound together by strands of my own hair. My jewelry was there too, a bracelet that I thought I'd lost, one of my earrings, things he must have stolen quietly and then kept for this. It wasn't a shrine to me, but it felt more like an altar. And I remember backing out of the room, shaking my head. My skin was crawling with the weight of something I couldn't name. The hair on my arms were standing up. I felt like I was going to be sick. What was going on? In that moment, I started packing my stuff to leave. And when he came back, I didn't even confront him. I grabbed the things I packed and left. And he begged me, threatened me, promised me, cycled through every trick he had to try to keep me there. But I was done, and I thought walking away would be enough. Later, I realized it was not enough to keep him away. Because what I didn't know then was that things he'd been whispering in that locked room weren't just games. They listened back, and they followed his order. And now they've attached themselves to me. But at first, it was just a feeling of paranoia I had after seeing that room and trying to leave. And I just felt paranoid in an apartment by myself. And you know that prickling at the back of your neck when you're sure someone's staring at you? Like you can just feel their eyes on you, glaring. I felt it constantly in my new apartment. And sitting on the couch, or I was brushing my teeth, or even in the shower, I'd turn around convinced I'd seen somebody there. But the room would always be empty. And then things started moving around the apartment. And they weren't big things. Well, at least not right away. My keys wouldn't be where I left them, or a glass that I was sure 100% that I sat on the counter, it would end up on the floor somewhere else. And the TV remote, it was in the freezer once. And all I could do was laugh it off, because I told myself I was just distracted and tired, because I had to work more hours to cover the rent for the apartment, and everything else I had to do was furnish the apartment and feed myself. So I figured I was tired from all the work. But the longer it went on, the less funny it became. Because pretty soon, there started to be shadows out of the corner of my eye. And they weren't not full figures, just like little flickers out of the corner. You know how you look away real fast and you think you saw something? It was kind of like that. and a shape slipping past the doorway, or like something crouched over the edge of my bed, like hands and like the top of somebody's head, but then it would vanish when I would turn my head to look at it. And once I saw a silhouette in the bathroom mirror, and it was standing behind me. But when I spun around, the room was empty. I literally thought I was going crazy, but I tried to tell myself it was stress, maybe trauma from the breakup with Marcus, or my mind just playing tricks on me, my anxiety getting to me. But the truth came that night, and I found it. I walked into my bedroom, and everything looked normal at first, until I saw something lying on my bed. And the closer I got, it looked like a photograph. It was a photograph of me, but a picture I had never taken. It looked almost like one of the same pictures I'd seen on his altar, laid out neat and perfect across my sheets, like someone had placed it there for me to find it. My stomach dropped so hard, I thought I was going to be sick. I hadn't taken the photo from his apartment. I knew I didn't. I knew I hadn't. But I stood frozen, staring at my own smiling face in the picture, until I felt that old, prickling crawl up my spine again. The weight of unseen eyes pressing in from every corner. The air started to feel thicker, like the moment before a storm. And that was the night I stopped pretending. And I said, Marcus hadn't let me go. And I didn't know where else to go. So I went to an old friend. Her name was Brittany. And she was the only person I knew who might believe me. We'd been friends for years. And she was always drawn to the weird and the unseen. And her apartment was lined with shelves of books about folklore and witchcraft. And she had crystals hanging in every window. And I used to tease her about it, but now I was desperate for it. And the second I walked into her place, I just broke down. I told her everything about Marcus, about the locked room, about the altar with my photos, about the shadows that followed me, the pictures that showed up on my bed. And the words tumbled out, ugly and shaky, and I was terrified. She'd laugh or tell me I was losing my mind. But surprisingly, she didn't. She just listened, her face grave. And she said, "You should have told me sooner." She said it so quietly. What he was doing, that wasn't just some hobby. That was a binding. And that word made my skin crawl. And I stayed with her that night, then the next night, and soon a week passed. And I combed through her books, flipping through brittle pages and scribbled notes. She lit sage and black candles, and even tried warding circles she'd learned from some old grimoire. And the smoke clung to the walls, but the air never felt lighter. If anything, it started to get worse. And I'd wake up in her guest room to find scratches across the floorboards, fresh ones, gouged deep into the wood. Some things disappeared from where we sat them once, and Brittany's protective charm vanished from the table and reappeared later in the sink, soaking in dirty water. And that night, I heard something pacing outside the door, and slow footsteps, but they were heavy. But when we opened it, there was nobody there, nothing, which was even creepier and scarier. And every day, Brittany's books gave us more pieces. things about curses and attachments, spirits that can be called but never dismissed. And we started circling words like demon and familiar and parasite. But none of them prepared me for the night we realized that thing wasn't just near me, it was with me. It was Brittany's idea to try the board. And I'd laughed about Ouija boards before. I always thought they were party tricks for sleepovers. But this time, sitting in the circle of candles, she lit on her living room floor. I wasn't laughing. My palms were slick with sweat as we placed our fingertips on the planchette. And she had whispered to me, "Don't fight it, just let it move itself." And at first, nothing really happened. The air was still the air, and it felt still heavy, and it was thick with the smell of incense, but it was still. And then the planchette slid, really slow at first, like I thought Brittany was moving it. But then it started to move with a purpose, and my throat tightened as the letters spelled themselves out. L-E-A-H. Leah. And I froze. "That's just us," I whispered. "It's just..." The planchette jerked beneath our hands, fast and violent, until it landed on a single word. M-I-N-E, mine. The candles flickered hard, and something scratched the wall, long and sharp claws. I felt cold hands brush the back of my neck, though no one was behind me. And the board spelled again. Y-O-U-C-A-N-T-R-U-N. You can't run. And Brittany yanked her hands back, gasping. The planchette kept moving on its own, dragging across the letters in a frantic spiral until it slammed off the board and the candles blew out in unison. And we didn't try it again after that. We stayed awake the whole night. And the next morning, Brittany insisted on taking me to someone she trusted, an older woman who lived on the edge of town, the kind of woman people called a witch, half in jest, half in respect. And her name was Marin. Marin didn't need to ask many questions. The moment I stepped onto her cluttered parlor, she went still. Her eyes narrowed in at me, and she was saying, "It's with you." And her voice was low and steady. I can see it clinging like tar, and my skin just crawled even more. And Brittany told her everything about Marcus, about the altar, about the shadows and the board, and Marin listened in silence. And then she finally spoke. "What he did is old," she said. "It's a binding, yes, but not just that. An ancient one, rarely used because of the cost. He tied you to him, girl. If you left, if you tried to break him or break from him, the punishment would be this." I gripped the edge of the table. "The demon?" She nodded. "It will attach itself deeper the longer you're apart. It will feed on you. And eventually, it won't just haunt you. It will consume you. It will possess you. And when that happens, there will be no Leah left, only it wearing your skin." And the room seemed to tilt around me. I felt hollow, emptiness inside, like the ground had dropped out from under my feet. And Brittany leaned forward. "There has to be a way to undo it." "And there is," Marin said. but it will take more than sage and salt. Great lengths, great sacrifice, and time is not your ally. And her eyes met mine, sharp and unflinching. You are already unraveling. And the more we talked, Marin had agreed to help. But she said we couldn't rush it. The moon is waning now, she explained, her voice slow and deliberate. What binds you is tethered to cycles older than us. To unbind, to break it, we need the moon at its fullest length, and that is in 3 days. 3 days felt like a death sentence to me, and I could already feel it getting stronger as the shadows clung to me like they were breathing. And at night, I'd wake up choking on air so thick it felt like there was smoke in my lungs. And more than once, I caught my reflection smiling when I clearly wasn't. I asked her what the ritual would be, and I needed to know. I needed to prepare myself for what is about to happen. And Marin folded her hands. This will not be easy. The binding is woven with his will and the demon's hunger, and we must unravel both. And she described it in pieces. We would draw a circle carved with salt, iron, and ash, and in the center I would stand tethered by cords braided with my own hair, and around me symbols would be burned into the ground to sever the ties one by one. And there would be chanting old words, not mine to know, but mine to endure. And the demon would resist. It would lash out. It would try to speak through me and move through me. I could not break the circle, no matter what happened. And if I did, Marin said, it would not only remain bound to me, but it would be unchained entirely, free to consume me fully, possess me. And at the final moment, when the moon is at its highest, I would be made to call Marcus's name aloud, to renounce him with every drop of my will. That was the knife's edge. If my resolve faltered, if I still carried even a shred of him in me, the binding would snap tight and permanent. Your soul will not be yours, Marin had said, not ever again. And her words settled like ice in my chest. 3 days. 3 days where it grew stronger, hungrier, and closer. 3 days until the only chance to cut the cord or lose myself forever. And the first night after Marin's warning, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, something breathed against my ear. Not a whisper, not words, just slow and like a wet drag of breath that was just too close. And when I opened my eyes, the room shifted in strange ways. Like the ceiling almost seemed lower, and the corners of the room would stretch longer. I almost looked like the walls were bending toward me as I laid in the bed. And I woke with bruises circling around my wrist, like someone had gripped me while I was dreaming. And the second day, I started losing time. Like I would be in the kitchen with Brittany, and then I would blink, and then I would find myself standing in the bathroom with no memory of walking there. And my phone, it was filled with recordings that I know I didn't make, but my own voice, you could hear it humming low, and there were ugly sounds that scraped like growls. And Brittany, she played one back for me, and her hand was shaking. "And that's not you," she whispered. I wasn't so sure anymore. And by the second night, my reflection stopped following me altogether. I'd lift my hand and the woman in the mirror would stand there still, grinning faintly, her teeth too sharp. And when I screamed, the sound echoed back from the glass. But it wasn't my scream. It was deeper, like a man's guttural scream. And Marin gave me charms. She gave me wards. She even gave me little pouches of iron and herbs to keep on me at all times. But the demon wasn't outside anymore. It was inside of me. I could feel it in my skin. My chest ached like something heavy was pressing against my ribs, pushing up from within. And the third day was the worst. I started catching thoughts that weren't mine, and they were cruel, sharp thoughts about Brittany and about Marin, about tearing, about burning. They scared me so badly. I locked myself in the bathroom, clawing at my skin like I could dig it out, and my eyes in the mirror flickered back for a heartbeat, like spilling through them black ink. And that night, I woke to find myself standing over Brittany's bed, clutching the scissors from her desk that I don't remember picking up. And my hands shook as I dropped them to the floor. And Brittany woke at the sound, and she pulled me into her arms, even though I was begging her not to touch me, not when it was already inside me. And the demon was bleeding into me, bone and blood. 3 days, Marin had said, and the full moon was tomorrow, and I wasn't sure if I would survive the night with myself still intact. So me and Brittany decided not to sleep the last night. We sat together in her living room, the curtains drawn tight, every lamp turned on. I couldn't stay in the dark anymore. Every flicker of shadow felt like it was stretching toward me, reaching me. My skin was prickling constantly, like something was crawling under the surface. And Brittany, she kept a candle burning between us, her hand resting on mine, even when I twitched and tried to pull away. "Just a few more hours," she kept saying. "We'll make it out. Just hold on." And I wasn't sure whether to believe her myself. At this point, I've basically almost given up. And when the first gray light of the morning through the blinds, we didn't speak. We just grabbed our bags and went straight to Marin's. Her house looked different in daylight. It was like less mysterious, and it was more weathered, and the paint peeling in places, and the wind chimes clattering in the breeze. But the moment I crossed her threshold, the heaviness pressed down again, stronger than ever. She knew. She could see it coiled around me. "We don't have time to waste," Marin said. "It will fight us. The ritual is not quick. We must begin the preparations now, so we're ready when the moon is high." The backyard was already half prepared. She cleared a wide space in the earth. The grass was scraped away, and around it, she and Brittany began to lay the circle, lines of salt and ash, iron nails pressed into the soil at each cardinal point. I helped where I could, but my hands shook so badly I dropped the candles twice, and every time I bent down, I felt it closer, pressing at my spine, curling cold fingers around my heart. And sometimes I swore I heard it humming inside my head, low and steady, like it was laughing, like it was taunting me. And by the afternoon, the circle, it was complete. Marin moved methodically, placing black candles in the dirt, setting bowls of water and blood at the edge, carving symbols into the soil with a bone-handed knife. She spoke as she worked, telling us each pieces of what was coming. This will take hours, she warned, and every step breaks one strand of the tether. You must endure all of it, Leah. If you falter, you leave the circle before it ends, it will not free you. It will free it. And her eyes met mine. I didn't need her to explain what that meant. And by sundown, the place felt charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. My chest hurt just standing inside the circle, and the demon was restless. It was agitated, like it knew what was coming. And as the sun bled into the horizon and the moon began to rise, Marin lit the first candle and nodded to me. It begins now. And Marin led me into the circle just after dusk. Once you're inside, you do not leave, she said. Not for pain, not for fear, not for love. And Brittany squeezed my shoulders and stepped back. Marin tied cords around my wrists, braided with strands of my hair, and a thin thread from a shirt Marcus once loved on me. The knots were small, 7 of them, lined along the braid like hard little hearts. And the first knot is flesh, Marin said. The last is mine. She pricked my palm with a needle and let 3 drops of blood fall onto the bowl at the western point. The water in the shivered as if something breathed beneath the surface. Seal, she murmured. The circle answered, salt tightening, iron nails at the 4 directions thrumming like struck wire, and I felt the demon stir. And Marin lit the black candles one by one, moving counterclockwise. With each flare, the air sank colder, the smell of iron strong in my mouth. She began to chant low, old syllables that made the hairs on my arms lift. Brittany stood just outside the circle, reading responses from a page written in Marin's neat, cramped hand. And the first knot burned hot against my wrist. A pressure swelled in my chest, like a hand pushing up under my ribcage, and I gagged. The bowl at the west darkened. The water turned from clear to tar black. Don't look away, Marin said. Let it see you seeing it. And something moved in the water, my reflection, smiling when I wasn't. And Marin pressed the bone-handled knife to the first knot. My blood unbound. She sliced. Pain shot up my arm and bloomed across my skin, not at the cut, but everywhere. Like invisible hooks were being ripped out of me all at once. I screamed. The candles guttered. The shadow in the bowl stretched long and thin, like a mouth opening. And a whisper slid through my teeth in Marcus's voice. Leah, come on. Don't do this. You don't want this. And I spat onto the dirt. Get out of me. The circle held. And the second knot is breath, Marin said. It rides you through the lungs. And she touched my sternum and cut the next knot. My throat slammed shut. I couldn't pull air. Panic clawed at me as my vision narrowed. The thing inside me purred, mine. It wanted me, terrified. Fear opened doors. Count, Brittany shouted, voice shaking. 4 in, 6 out, Leah. With me. I dragged at the air. Nothing. Spots burst at the edges of my sight. Marin flicked iron filling into the bowl of blood at the south. It hissed, and my chest popped open like a seal breaking, and beneath, breath rushed in so fast I sobbed. The third knot is sight. Marin sent a small mirror on the ground before me. It mimics to trick you. And she cut the knot, and the mirror steamed over and then cleared, and my reflection didn't move. It lifted its hand slowly and pressed a palm to the glass. Its mouth opened wider and wider, the jaw unhinging impossibly, teeth running back like a shark's. It looked delighted. You can have them, it said in a voice that was all gravel. Your friend first. The lights in Marin's house flickered. Something slammed against the back door once, twice, hard enough to rattle the frames. And Brittany flinched, but didn't run. And I kept my eyes on the mirror and did not move. You don't get her, I said. You don't get me. Hairline cracks spidered across the glass. The reflection smile broke with it. And with that, the third knot was broken. And the fourth knot is promise, Marin said softly. Her eyes were on me, not the tools she had. She said the things you said yes to, even when you didn't mean it. And she cut it, and a flood of memories ripped through me. Marcus's hands on my cheeks, his whispers, say you'll never leave me, and me tired and smiling and saying okay, I won't. 100 small yeses I'd given because no was too scary, and each memory tore as it passed, leaving a raw echo inside me. And the demon tried to anchor on the hurt. It conjured Marcus's voice again, sweet as syrup. We are happy. You remember? Just come back. Step out of the circle. We'll fix it. And my muscles twitched toward the edge. The salt smelled so sharp it burned. Brittany's voice came from somewhere steady and warm, reading the response words. What was taken by false oath returns to its maker. The air bucked, and somewhere far away a dog began howling, and it didn't stop. The fifth knot is hunger, Marin said. It feeds through your desires. She cut the knot, and heat flooded my bones, a furious want that felt like fire and teeth. Not lust, consumption. I wanted to tear, to eat. I lunged before I knew I'd moved, hitting the invisible wall of the circle so hard it jolted my teeth. Back, Marin snapped, voice like a bell. I scrambled to the center, shaking. The demon laughed inside my head, wet and delighted. It wanted me to disqualify myself, to step out, to ruin all of this. And Marin tossed coarse salt in a hard ring around my feet. The hunger peeled back like skin from a burn, leaving me gasping. The sixth knot is fear, she said, the oldest tether. When the knife touched the knot, the night itself seemed to lean in. Every shadow on the fence grew a body. Footsteps circled us in the dry grass, never appearing. And the temperature dropped until my breath smoked in the air, and the candles burned with a low blue tongue, and a voice pressed the back of my skull, bigger than Marcus, older. Say my name. I didn't know it. I knew I didn't know, and I didn't want to know. Knowing would be a door, and I dug my nails into my palms, and I let the pain anchor me. And Marin cut, and the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed had weighed. And Marin looked up at the moon, and it was high and perfect, terrible, and then at me. Only one knot remained, hard against my skin. The seventh is named, she said. Yours, his, what ties a soul to a hook. And she handed me a small, battered ring, thin silver, cheap. I kept it tucked in a drawer even after I left him, telling myself I didn't mean anything. It felt heavy now, like a confession. And you must give it up. Everything of him you carried willingly, Marin said. And you must renounce him by name 3 times. I stepped to the edge of the inner mark and dropped the ring into the blackened water, and it sank without a ripple. And the demon surged, my spine arched, tendons standing out in my neck, my jaw locked so tight I heard a tooth crack, and the world narrowed to the circle under my feet, and the moon above, and the blade at my wrist. Say it, Marin commanded. My throat clenched. Sound came out, but it was crushed and wrong. And it laughed inside me, gusting cold through my ribs. My tongue felt held between 2 cold fingers, like it didn't want me to say it. And Brittany's voice cut through, not reading now, just calling me back. Leah, look at me. And I did. Her eyes were wet and furious and scared, but she looked at me like I was still here. Marcus Hale, I managed, the syllables scraping my throat like broken glass. The demon hit me, then hard memories flaring. The first kiss, the first gift, the first yes. I staggered. Marcus Hale, I said again, louder, the circle's iron nails glowing dull red at the heads. The candles roared. The black water boiled. The last knot burned against my own skin. Marcus. My mouth almost closed on the final word. And then I forced it open, forced the truth out with everything left inside me. Hail, I release you. I renounce you. You are nothing to me. And Marin cut, and something tore, not like fabric, like a rope soaked in oil. It snapped and slithered, recoiling so fast the air bucked and the ground under the circle heaved. The thing inside me screamed, not out loud, but in a way that rattled my bones and made my eyes flood with blood as shape tore free of my mouth in smoke and ash and sound. Taller than a door frame, and its limbs looked all wrong, and all the teeth, and it slammed against the inside of the circle like a hooked shark. It hit, and the iron nails flared white. The smoke folded in on itself, writhing, trying to find a seam, and there wasn't one. And Marin spoke a last sharp word and slammed the knife into the dirt. The smoke convulsed and collapsed sucked down into the bowl of blood as if it were a drain, and the liquid went still. And then there was silence, and I crumpled, and Brittany was at the edge of the circle, her hands out, but not crossing the line, waiting for Marin's nod. And when it came, she was on me, wrapping me in her arms, and both of us were shaking, and Marin's face was gray with exhaustion. She lifted the bowl carefully and poured the thick, dark contents into a waiting jar, lined with iron fillings and ash, and she sealed it with wax, and then sat 3 nails across the lid like a ward. "It's unbound from you," she said hoarsely, "but it isn't gone." "What does that mean?" Brittany asked. Marin glanced at the sky, at the bright, indifferent moon. "This kind of thing returns along the cord to its maker. It will go hunting the will that called it, and he will feel it." And my phone, I had forgotten on the back steps, lit up, and a message from an unknown number, and it was time-stamped through 12:03 a.m. I said, "What did you do?" Another seconds later, "Leah?" ? The circle smelled like smoke and iron and rain. My wrists were raw where the knots had been, and inside my chest, for the first time in weeks, there was only my breath. I didn't answer, and when Marin cut the final knot, something ripped out of me. It wasn't a clean break. It was like 1,000 hooks being yanked from my flesh all at once. My veins burned like they were on fire, and every nerve lit up, and I couldn't tell if I was screaming or if the sound was only inside my head. And my chest convulsed, my jaw cracked wide, and smoke poured from my mouth and nose, thick and black, carrying with it a shriek that didn't sound human at all. And the circle shook under its weight. Iron nails glowed white hot. Salt hissed as if it were burning. The thing rose above me, all teeth and limbs bent at wrong angles, a shadow given muscle and rage. Its head, or what looked like one, snapped toward me, its mouth full of too many rows of teeth, stretching wide as if it to lunge back inside. And the circle held. The demon slammed against the barrier again and again, and sparks flying from the iron nails with each impact. The ground trembled beneath me. The candles roared high and blue, and my body rocked with the force of it, as though we were still tethered, as though it could drag me out by sheer hunger. And Marin's chant cut sharp through the chaos, each word striking like a hammer. With every syllable, the demon recoiled, collapsing in on itself, folding like smoke into a shrieking shape. The screams began to hiss, and then a growl, and then silence as the blackness funneled down into the waiting bowl of blood, and the air went still, and my body sagged like all the strength had been ripped out with it. And Marin sealed the jar, wax dripping down on its sides, iron nails pressed over the lid, and she held it carefully, like it might still bite through the glass. Her face was pale, her lips bloodless, but her eyes burned steady. "It's unbound from you," she said finally, her voice raw. "But listen to me. This kind of thing doesn't vanish. It cannot. It was called here, tied to a will, and that cord still exists. And now that it's been served from you, it will follow the other end back. Her gaze pinned me, hard and certain. It will return to the one who summoned it. It will go hunting the will that called it, and he will feel it. The weight of her words sank deep into my chest, and I saw Marcus's face in my mind, smug, furious, certain he was untouchable. And I wondered what it would look like when he realized the thing he bound to me was tearing its way home. For the first time in weeks, my skin felt like my own again. But the thought chilled me all the same, because if it was going back to him, what if he welcomed it back?